wow, just wow. Another bad episode review. Well, I just want to get this one done so I can move on. Yup. If that intro isn't clear, today I'm reviewing the 19th episode of season 12 of Thomas and Friends called Push Me, Pull You. What's this episode about? Scarlowe wants to take a puppet show train, but Mr. Percival tells him that it's probably going to be too heavy for him. So then Rheneas decides to offer to help, but of course Scarlowe shuts him down. Throughout the rest of the episode, he crashes 3 times, the third time of which he lands in a pond. Finally, he learns his lesson how two people must work together in order to get the job done in time. Yeah, this is one of the worst episodes I've seen yet. Get ready, because this next couple minutes is gonna be filled with lots and lots of raging. So you've been warned. Firstly, I will do some minor problems first, because I have something to say about the big problem in this episode. First of all, let's start with Thomas. Honestly, since this episode revolves around Scarlowe, Thomas doesn't really have much of the spotlight in this episode. And I can see why they wouldn't focus on Thomas in this episode. But honestly, Thomas is actually kind of a hit or miss character. Like, he has some really good episodes he appears in, like Thomas Comes to Breakfast and Thomas to the Rescue. Other times he could be his worst, like in the season 12 episode Thomas to the Billboard. But here, he's just completely wasted in this episode. Like, he really doesn't get to do much in this episode. I think he has like one line of dialogue, and that's it. And if anything else, I think he might actually be a silent character. Next, this episode also has the repetitious 3 strikes formula. Yes, you heard me right. This was a time around in the hit slash nitrogen era of Thomas and Friends where the characters had to crash 3 times. Then after the 3rd strike, they find out how much of an idiot they've been. This episode uses this approach to the worst. Scarlowe crashes into first I think he crashes into Rusty's train, and then he crashes into Duncan's train, and then the 3rd time he crashes into Percival Pond. And after the pond crash, he finally finds out how much of an idiot he is. That is way too formulaic, even for this show. I will be raging in just a little bit, so no need to worry. The next thing I want to mention is that here's where the raging begins. Rheneas is just completely pointless in this episode. Yeah, if you thought Thomas was pointless in this episode, you have not seen anything yet. Rheneas is it is just so bad. The fact that this episode actually treats Rheneas with disrespect after a couple seasons where he was very, very strong. In fact, Peter Sam's character was dumbed down a lot. I mean, come on. This episode is just plain bad. I thought the season 9 episode, Scarlowe the Brave, treated Scarlowe with disrespect by making him act like a child. But here, that is like twice as bad as Scarlowe the Brave. I mean, come on. This episode is so ridiculous. Furthermore, he doesn't even learn his lesson until after the pond crash. Come on. Why couldn't they have just put the moral closer to the end of the episode instead of having to put up with this? Furthermore, Scarlowe is just completely upset at Rheneas for no reason. All Rheneas wanted to do was to help pull the puppet show train, and he said, no, I could do this myself. No, you leave me alone while I take this puppet show train. Seriously, what even logic is this episode? In fact, all Thomas does in this episode, like I mentioned, is give advice and saying that, well, the puppet show train is heavy. So does Scarlowe actually listen and have Rheneas help him? No! Sharon Miller decided to pull the rug out from us. And yes, that is the exact same Sharon Miller who screwed up Rolly's character in the Bob the Builder episode, Rolly's Rovers. Yup. And I thought that her mistreatment of Bob the Builder characters was bad enough. The way she treats Skarloey and Rhaenyra in this episode is just hindering season 4. In season 4, Rhaenyra and Skarloey were actually some of the better characters in that season. But in season 12, on the other hand, they are complete jerks to each other. And seriously, why doesn't this episode actually have a decent story? Here, the episode is just plain boring and it's stupid. And I nearly raged out when Skarloey kept crashing over and over. Because, seriously, this episode really just doesn't know what it's like to be a good episode. And also, this is just like how the writer treated Diesel in the episode Thomas and the Billboard. Except that episode was not written by Sharon Miller, but it still had all the horrible things, like a 3 strikes formula plot, etc. So, why does this episode have to stake these problems in its 12th season? This is literally like modern SpongeBob, where all the episodes are just formulaic and more or less the same. Yep, this episode it just sours on me every single time I watch it because it is just simply unrealistic. Furthermore, I actually thought that this would be a better episode than Thomas and the Billboard, but no, this is actually a worse episode than Thomas and the Billboard. In fact, this has a 2.6 out of 10 rating on IMDb. Or better yet, 2.4 out of 10 rating on IMDb. That's how bad it is. In fact, I could not believe how much this angered me when I watched it again. It literally made it so I didn't like season 12 anymore. In fact, why couldn't have Skarloey use logical of answers to solve his problems? This episode I don't care if this episode's trying to be funny. Having Skarloey acting like a hypocrite for the sake of a joke or some kind of story is not funny. Furthermore, this episode legitimately thinks that I should hate Skarloey, and I don't want to do that because of how good he was in season 4. Furthermore, why couldn't they have actually had a better story like I mentioned before? This episode just truly sours on me, and I cannot believe how frustrated I was with the plot in this episode. Yes, this is 0 out of 10. I hate this episode a lot. More so than Thomas and the Billboard. If you wanted to see an episode that actually had a good story behind it, why not watch the episode Thomas Comes to Breakfast from another season? That episode actually legitimately had a good funny story to go along with it. In fact, based on that alone, watch Thomas Comes to Breakfast from season 2. That episode actually had a very funny scene in it where Thomas crashed into the station master's house. That part at least was funny. In this episode, on the other hand, Push Me Pull You, the crash scenes aren't even funny. In fact, it's just padding to make the episode longer. 0 out of 10. Do not watch this episode. Stay far away from this episode. Don't even dream about it. Don't even think about it. Don't even have any thoughts about it. Don't watch this episode. So yeah, that's how I feel about Push Me, Pull You. A 0 out of 10 episode with poor tastes and poor subject matter. Either way, I will see you in the next video after I calm down. See you in another movie or episode review. I hope that the next one of these I do will be a better episode. I will see you again soon. Bye.